Hi students! Welcome to the last session of our Teaching on Air for the third quarter. I'm your science teacher, Ma'am Maureen S. Angat. You have learned so far how evolution of different organisms through natural selection can result in biodiversity.
In today's lesson, you will explain how species diversity increases the probability of adaptations and survival of organisms in changing environments. For the learning objectives, number 1, describe and identify the types of biodiversity. Number 2, explain how species diversity increases the probability of adaptations and survival of organisms in changing environments. And the last, classify the value of biodiversity in an ecosystem. What is biodiversity? Biodiversity is a term that describes how diverse living things are in a specific area. Organisms, such plants and animals, small or big, they are part of biodiversity and are economically and ecologically valuable. Biodiversity is very important because it sustains the balanced flow of energy in an ecosystem. Our planet's diverse thriving ecosystems may seem like permanent fixtures, but they are actually vulnerable to collapse. Jungles can become deserts, and reefs can become lifeless rocks, even without cataclysmic events like volcanoes and asteroids. What makes one ecosystem strong and another weak in the face of change? The answer, to a large extent, is biodiversity. Biodiversity is built out of three intertwined features: ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. The more intertwining there is between these features, the denser and more resilient the web becomes. Let us discuss the genetic diversity. When we say genetic diversity, it refers to the diversity of genes present between individuals of the same species. It is vital to the adaptation and survival of a species because species in a population with genetic traits that enable them to withstand environmental changes will be able to survive and reproduce. And now, let us proceed to the species diversity. It refers to the number and abundance of species found in an ecosystem. A high species diversity makes a more productive, sustainable, and sustainable ecosystem. And the last is ecological diversity. It refers to the variety of habitats or ecosystem that present in a location. So we have rainforest, mangrove, estuary, and coral reefs. Those are examples of ecological diversity.
Biodiversity value is the origin of all wealth is came from the bosom of Earth. In general, the value of species or organisms can be divided into three categories.
First, we have direct economic value, which means that the species is considered to have direct economic value if their products are source of food, medicine, clothing, shelter, and energy. For example, some medicines being used nowadays have formulation extracted from plants and animals. Next is indirect economic value. A species has indirect economic value if there are benefits produced by the organisms without using them. For example, certain species maintain the chemical quality of natural bodies of water, prevent soil erosion, and flood cycle materials in the soil and absorb pollutants. And lastly is aesthetic value. A lot of species provide visual or artistic enjoyment, like a forested landscape and the calming beauty of natural park, or there may be used for spiritual meditation like the prayer mountains. Let us perform a simple activity.
You're going to write your answer in a comment section, or you may get a piece of paper and pen. Number your paper 1 to 5.
You're going to identify the value of organisms by writing the word direct economic value, indirect economic value, and aesthetic value. Let us start. Number 1. Eggs, milk, and meat from poultry animals. Number 2. Plants used in parks. Number 3. Fishes maintaining the pH level of bodies of water. Number 4. Woods turned into furniture. And number 5. Forested landscape. Let us see how you did well in our activity. Let's check.
Now, let us move on to the last lesson. Let us talk about the relationship between population growth and carrying capacity of specific environment.
For the lesson objectives, number 1, identify and describe the different factors of population growth. Number 2, explain the relationship between population growth and carrying capacity. And number 3, appreciate the importance of studying the relationship between population growth and carrying capacity. Relationship between population growth and carrying capacity. Population is a group of organisms of the same species that live in a certain area or community. Scientists regularly monitor the number of populations of organisms in an area because an increase or decrease in a population can be indicators of potential problems in organisms' environment. The ups and downs of population growth. There are many factors that can cause a population size to change. Any population, whether it be that of humans, animals, the molds growing on bread, or the bacteria living in your intestines, will grow if more organisms are being developed or born than are dying.
We have birth rate or natality. When we say birth rate, it refers to the number of birth in a population. We have death rate or mortality. When we say mortality or death rate, it refers to the number of organisms that dying in a population.
As a population grows in an area, a population may experience the effects of increased densities. When we say population density, it refers to the number of organisms per unit area. Please take note that if the population density is very high, it means that there are a lot of organisms crowded into a certain area. But if the population density is very low, this means that there are few organisms in an area. And now, let us move on to carrying capacity. So when we say carrying capacity, it is the maximum population a habitat can support indefinitely. Population exceeds it for long periods, degraded its environment, and reduces future carrying capacity. So, in carrying capacity, it determined by the amount of available resources like food, water, or habitat. If the population grows indefinitely, competition will increase because of the organisms and less resources will be available to sustain the population that can lead to the density dependence for this reason. There are two limited general factors of a population's growth. First, density-independent limiting factor. It is a factor that regulates a population's growth and influenced by population density. Example, when a population reaches a certain size, there won't be enough resources like food, shelter, and water for all organisms. This could cause the population to stop growing when it reaches the maximum number of organisms that can be supported or carried by the environment. And the other one is the factor, what we call density-independent limiting factor. So, this factor where population's density does not directly influence changes in population's growth. Population's growth is affected by the human activities, natural disasters, and even climate. Before a population reaches its carrying capacity, it experiences a period of rapid growth. When resources are unlimited, population exhibit exponential growth, resulting in a J-shaped curve. When the resources are limited, population exhibit logistic growth. In logistic growth, population expansion decreases as resources become scarce and it levels off when the carrying capacity of the environment is reached, resulting in a S-shaped curve. Limiting factors that depend on population density. Any abiotic or biotic factors that cause the decrease in population growth. It consists of competition, predation, parasitism, and diseases. We have also natural disasters and human disturbance. Remember that everything on Earth is connected to everything else. Biotic and abiotic of the ecosystems are very much interrelated. Most of our resources came from different ecosystems that supply our daily needs.
I hope you learned something new from our lesson. Always remember that science is fun. Happy learning!